Welcome to Merryfield's Gardening Advisor, brought to you by the experts at Merryfield Garden Center. Join us as we discover beautiful plants, new trends, and exciting ideas for your landscape. So let's get growing together. Merryfield's Gardening Advisor, bringing out the best in your garden.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Merryfield's Gardening Advisor. Peggy and I are very glad you could join us on this, what looks to be a beautiful weekend.
I think so. And that's good because I need to get out into the garden. Whoa!
I know. Well, and you know, the nice rains we've had, I feel a little less congested and that type of thing. Hopefully some of this pollen's been wiped away, at least temporarily, so that will be good. So we are glad you could join us. It's a great weekend to garden, and we've got some great ideas for you today. Peggy has a very interesting show today because we're kind of titling it, Some Plants You May or May Not Know.
That's right. There's so many beautiful plants out there, and with every delivery, there's something that I have to investigate, you know? And so we are going to talk about some of these plants, narrowing the field quite a bit. There's so many out there, but for instance, we're going to talk about begonias. Begonias are the new impatiens. Impatiens, the regular garden type, still has an issue, and we have chosen not to carry them. This does not affect the New Guinea impatiens.
Right.
But because so many people are using begonias in lieu of, we're going to show you some of the incredible choices that you've got now as far as begonias are concerned. But before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about vegetables, particularly tomatoes, because now is the time.
Yes.
We've had some cool weather, a little longer than normal, but now the soil is warming up. Now it's time to get those tomatoes and get those vegetables and even get the basil into the ground. Okay, so where are you going to put all this stuff? Because everybody now wants some vegetables, even in very small pots.
And they don't have to be in the ground anymore.
No, they do not. They grow beautifully in containers, provided the container's big enough. And always trying these things. That was the year that I grew a vegetable and herb garden at the end of the driveway, because I don't have a lot of sunshine.
Right.
And so I had a lot of sunshine right there. I haven't really done that since because it usurped a lot of space.
Right.
But
well, and you got a ways to walk to get your vegetables.
It can be done. Well, I was in the driveway. I didn't have so far to go there. So you can do it just about anywhere. You can mix it with your other plants, perennials, etc. As long as it gets 5 to 6 hours of absolute direct sun. It doesn't have to have sun all day long. But we're going to come back and talk about some of that soil prep.
Great.
After our announcements.
Okay. And we have a lot to talk to you about today, so we're not going to be taking phone calls. So just grab your pen and paper, grab a cup of coffee, and get ready to take some notes because we've got some great ideas for you. Before we get started, a couple of quick announcements. We've been really thankful. The Arlington Rose Foundation has been coming out and helping us out in the rose section. They are just wonderful to be out there, and they have their meetings at several of our meetings at our Fair Oaks location. So I know tomorrow Pam Powers is going to be out there. So if you have any questions about roses, come talk to the experts. So it's a great opportunity. They have a rose show coming up June 7th and 8th, their annual rose show. And the next weekend, the May 25th, on Sunday at our Fair Oaks location, there's going to be a seminar about preparing for rose shows. They're going to have experts there showing you to kind of perfect, how to get your plants ready to show. So take advantage of that. Also wanted to mention that speaking of roses, we've got some gorgeous roses in, and we actually brought in a special selection of the single bloom knockout roses that are on special at a great price. So take advantage of that. But do come by. It's rose time. It's annual time. It's perennial time. It's shrub time. It's tree time. But it's rose time too. So take advantage of that. So that was really all the announcements that I had, except come in and see us because we'd love to see you. And we've got
Roses.
lots to share.
Roses are important. A lot of people enjoy the roses if you've got adequate sun. But we're going to talk about tomatoes right now and vegetables. And let's bring up the next picture as a suggestion. This actually was a neighbor, but I know that my youngest daughter and her children, well, actually Maggie did it too, used the side foundations of their house because it received a lot of sun, and still are doing this, to grow their vegetables. And there is, in this small place, that bed is at least 6 or 7 feet wide. And there are tomatoes in the back. There's cucumbers growing on trellis. There's peppers. I was amazed at the harvest that these neighbors got from that particular kind of thing, okay? So if we come back here, we're going to talk intensely about some tomatoes. There are different kinds of tomatoes available now.
Right. Lots
There
of different
are
kinds.
the hybrids that are hybrids because they're more resistant to some of the diseases, particularly the blights that tomatoes can get. And so, and they're quite flavorful too because I've grown them for years, okay? They're the little cherry tomatoes, which just outperform anything, I think, you know. The typical ones, and then there are a lot of organic tomatoes. There's so many different organic tomatoes that it can be confusing at times. And you can't really have all of them, although we have quite a selection. The organics are very flavorful. I'm not sure that they produce as heavily as some of the others, but lots of choices where the tomatoes are concerned. Another tip as far as the vegetable garden is concerned, it's great to come in and put in plants, a few plants. We even have a few bean plants, green bean plants, and you can certainly do that. But you can also pick up, like, for instance, cucumbers. You can also pick up the seeds. You can put in a few of the plants to give you a head start in earlier ones, and then you can plant some of the seeds also to give you a little bit later one. But a couple of tips. If you are planting green beans, buy a packet of inoculant. This is a nitrogen fixing kind of thing. And let's say that this is a cup or a paper cup. Put your seeds inside, barely moisten them, sprinkle the inoculant over them, and then plant. They will produce better. Large crops of that, you know, whether it's beans or peas in particular are good. Pick up a package of inoculant. Another tip, if you are planting things like okra, it's very good to soak this okra in a little bit of water for at least 2 hours. And it's amazing how just a few plants of okra, now this gets big, okay, can produce enough for a couple of people anyway.
Great. All right. Super tips. Okay. And always know that our plant experts are ready at all the stores with all kinds of great tips like this. So stop by and talk to them. Pick their brains because they're there. They're there.
It works.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with some plants you may or may not know. The beautiful colors of spring.
Love those bump shots because of the opportunity to show just a few of the wonderful things, choices. That was a purple and soft yellow streptocarpella. And oh my, what a beautiful plant that is. But we're not talking about streptocarpella right
We're talking
now.
about lots of other interesting plants.
We're actually talking about some soil preparation and the planting of these tomatoes. And I will tell you how I did it. And of course, I learned from some pros.
That's right.
So maybe my father was one of them.
All right.
I think. So let's bring up the first picture. Picture's worth 1,000 words. Last week, I went out into the small area of my herb, and it's actually a tremendous combination garden. The soil is good. I've been gardening there for many, many years. But organic material is very important to help break up our good old clay in this area. And I'm not blaspheming the clay because it holds moisture, it holds nutrients, it's a good thing, okay? But I always add organic material to the soil as I am planting. I used a combination this year because I have heard from the customers, you're looking at a bag here called Coast of Maine. And this is a blend of organic materials that includes oyster shell type stuff. And I have had several people tell me that things really jump. And if we come back, I'd like to show you a bag of something that has just been incredibly successful. And that is the product called Dr. Earth. It's very organic. It has a blend of a lot of different things. I was reading through this when I was washing out this bag, actually. It contains earthworm castings, kelp meal, fishbone meal, oyster shell, dolomitic lime, humus, sorry about that, not hummus. That's right. Fir bark, peat moss, all of the good, oh no, you don't want to eat this. The plants will eat this. All of those wonderful organic things. In my vegetable garden area particularly, I use only organic things. I like to put those organic things into the soil, and I like to fertilize with an organic fertilizer. And we have some choices. Dr. Earth makes a new one that I'm going to try this year also. Okay. I have been using Espoma, which is great. I love those products, and I've continued to use those products around the perennials and other things. But I am going to try more of these this year. But let's go through also the depth of planting. Most plants do not want to be planted too deep. It can be death sentence for most plants. However, tomato plants are an exception to that. Another exception to that is actually a clematis. It benefits from being planted a couple of inches deeper than it's growing. But I sat this plant into the hole that I had prepared, working that Dr. Earth thoroughly into the soil, and you hopefully can see that that root ball that I've loosened has been placed down into that hole at a depth that's greater than the depth of my shovel, so that's several inches.
And you've removed some of the bottom leaves on there as well.
Absolutely, I did. And in the next picture, I have gone back, filled in all of that, after which you'll water really well, and then in the next picture, I have staked it, and with a good stake is very important. Now, Debbie's father, several years ago, actually invented, shall I say?
That's right.
This two-piece tomato cage. It is very, very sturdy. It can be used simply around one tomato. Because it's in two pieces, you can use it also to trellis your beans and your cucumbers, so it's very versatile. Now, notice, for the moment, I have not done any mulching in that vegetable garden because I want the soil to warm up. That's very important. But in a couple of weeks, or as soon as I can get to it now, I will go in between the little rows. And it's pretty intensely planted, so there's not a whole lot of space for this, okay?
You all know what Peggy's garden is like.
And I'm going to put down several layers of newspaper, because I don't mind a little weeding, but I don't want to weed a lot. And so I'm going to put down 5 or 6 layers of newspaper, put a little bit of Virginia Fines on top of it to hold it down and to mask it. And then I always sprinkle a little bit of pine needles. Why? Well, it's nostalgic for me. And I like the looks of it, and it lasts for a long time. It really is great. So I will mulch wherever I can. It helps to hold the moisture in the ground, and it also helps to keep down the weeds. And in that fashion, you're not going to hate your garden because you're always out there weeding.
That's
you
right.
know? And I think in teaching children to work with these plants and know how a tomato grows, where a cucumber comes from, is very important. But if you give them only the task that's not pleasant, that's not so
You're
good.
absolutely right.
You know?
You don't think about those things.
I've got one more pic that I'd like to bring up. This was actually taken a couple of years ago back in that same garden. Now, if you don't want the look of that particular tomato cage, which I think is fantastic and lasts forever,
And it's so versatile.
and easy to store, and or put around your favorite tree or shrub to keep the deer from
away.
rubbing it in the winter time. We have some nifty little cages and fences that are colorful, and so I used some of this. Now, they're not as strong as Bob's tomato cages are, but they are strong. But I did stabilize them with pieces of rebar. We have cut some, I think they're like 4 inches, 4 feet, pieces, and they're very easy to stabilize a lot of things. So that once this cucumber or beans have grown up, it's not going to collapse, you know. And so that's the process that I am doing right now. I'm going to go back and I'm going to put in my basil because, yes, the ground is fine now, okay? And I love several of those and love to cook with herbs. And so the herbs have been in for quite a while.
No, it's wonderful.
But the basil can go in now, and all those veggies can go in now. Tis the season.
That's right.
Tis the time.
Okay, when we come back, I'm going to send you to the virtual garden.
Are you now?
I am, because you've got some great ideas. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Night. Welcome back to Merrifield Garden Center's Gardening Advisor. And we just talked a little bit about it's time to get the vegetables in now, and it's time to get the flowers in now. All that beauty makes us very happy. And there's so many of these things that are going to last you all summer long. There are a lot of beautiful perennials that can be mixed with a few annuals. And actually, again, these are some of the things that I've trialed in my own garden a number of years ago, and I'd like to point out what some of them are. Number one, this became an incredible butterfly, hummingbird, bee garden, and we need to support all of those things too, and this is how you do it. There are a lot of salvia, and we are really going to be talking a lot about what types of salvia are available. So it's difficult to find some really neat true blues, but among the salvias you can do that. And there's several different varieties of salvia in this picture, as you can see, grouped together. That's how I like my color. There are even some little straw flowers coming in through here, which I like to be a part of that garden in the back where I have vegetables and I have herbs. This is a section where I can go out and cut flowers too. I enjoy that. There's also the beautiful yellows of the Gloriosa daisy. Not a true perennial, but it often comes back and it often self-seeds. And so go for the Gloriosa daisy. All summer bloom, great cut flowers. And let's roll through some of these pictures because it shows you how I've combined some of these plants. Celosia. Long blooming here too, and in different colors. And zinnias, you can't believe how much the butterflies love the zinnias. taller types of salvia in this. Salvia, zinnias, celosia in this particular picture. And we'll go to the next one, please. Again, different kinds of salvia. We frequently call this little red one the hummingbird salvia, and there is one variety that's labeled hummingbird salvia, but I see no difference really, so I've sort of loosely called this particular little red annual salvia a hummingbird salvia. And then you've got the taller forms of the blue to purple salvia. That's a great annual that blooms all summer. Some of them will be shorter, some will be taller, and that makes for an interesting garden here. Wonderful combination of plants that make great cut flowers too. And by cutting them, you extend the period of bloom. The next one, please. Here is a close-up of the one that I'm calling the hummingbird salvia. It really is a beautiful plant. It's available in other colors too, in white, if white is your thing. And yes, the hummingbirds do go to other than just the red, okay? And there's a couple more pictures there, I think. Is there another? Yeah, there we go. This is the salvia black and blue. This has become a very, very popular and perennial salvia. And it is that true deep blue. Stands about 3 to 4 feet tall, so give it plenty of room. And in the next picture, we'll have a couple of others. Again, Salvia victoria, a wonderful long blooming plant, approximately 2 to 2.5 feet. Salvia victoria. And another one. Last one. We're going to save this one, okay? I'm going to throw this over to Debbie because we want to show you some more salvia before we talk about begonias. Begonias are very important, but we'll be back with the begonias. But in the meantime, Debbie, show them this beautiful, what I referred to as hummingbird salvia.
Isn't this? Let's see if you can get a close-up on this. If I can hold this straight enough for you. And the little, it really looks like a hummingbird type of plant. It's just gorgeous. It's going to bloom all through the season. Part full sun to part shade on that, but it is just gorgeous. You have some more salvia?
Absolutely, I do indeed. I want to bring back over when I talk to you about some of the other beautiful purple salvias. Mm-hmm. There's two here. This is often one of the ones that's similar to the Salvia victoria, okay? Mm-hmm. But different characteristics, different colors. There's some new varieties out there. There's some very soft blues and then going into the purples.
I love these purples.
And they're beautiful, but they make great cut flowers too.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And if you cut every now and then, you're just encouraging the side shoots to come out and to continue to bloom. And again, hummingbirds love it. Now, I also want to, I'm not so sure.
Find it.
I'm going to reach for this, so I go off camera here. It's okay.
The big one.
There are perennial salvias, too. Mm-hmm. It's a big group of plants.
I know, it's wonderful.
Lots of different perennial salvias. This particular one I really love because, boy, does it make great cut flowers. And it's very tall and loose, tall being 2.5 feet at least. And it's the cordona sage or salvia. Mm-hmm. But you will find in the perennial section a tremendous selection of these. And if you keep the old blooms off, which isn't a major thing, it will bloom all summer long. Mm-hmm. You can get continuous bloom from these perennial salvias. Okay. So I really highly recommend those.
Super. Okay, let's take a quick break and come back with more. Stay tuned. Well, begonias are a wonderful wonderful group of plants, and there's so many different varieties and looks to choose from. And they're kind of the new impatiens in a way.
This is what I've teasingly called them, you know, because of the fact that we don't have the regular impatiens. Again, need to specify, this powdery mildew is not affecting the New Guinea impatiens, and that's fine. New Guineas require a little bit more sun. They certainly are good in shade, and now there are those that they're calling the sun impatiens, and so that's a good thing. And don't be afraid to use those; they do bloom well. But I don't know whether sometimes there has to be a demand for plants for us to get some of these new ones, and the fact that we didn't have these impatiens, all of a sudden we're getting this deluge. The opportunity to enjoy something different. And that different is the begonia. Right. Because there's a begonia out there for every situation, for sun and shade. And okay, the first slide's going to be a little teaser. And I was so excited, and everybody was so excited about the dark leaf begonia that you see with the brilliant orange flower. And it's just fantastic. They called it Sparks Will Fly. Well, guess what?
It looks like sparks flying.
You're going to have to wait till next year for that one. Because often if something really takes off, all of a sudden there's not enough of it, you know? And so I'm going to have the opportunity to see what this plant's really going to do, and I have great expectations. But coming out from that, in that container, which I had the opportunity to do last week, is a begonia called Million Kisses. And it's just a delightful color, and it weeps over. It's just beautiful. So we will go on to the next one, which without a doubt, this has been my favorite now for 3 or 4 years. It's Selenia begonia. Selenia begonia. And it will grow in full sun or in part shade. And this is on my back deck. Again, I just got it into the container last week. And I also put in a beautiful perennial fern with this. And we are going to talk about ferns a little bit.
The other nice thing about that I love is the beautiful blue pot against the bright color of the flower and the gazing ball.
Yes,
so it's all about presentation.
Fond of those gazing balls, and I've been very lucky that I've had those gazing balls for a long time.
And they do very well for you.
they really do. Well, if they predict a great deal of wind and so forth, they kind of come inside more, you know. But actually, I have left some out over winter, which I do not recommend, and had them come through beautifully. It's amazing because you think they're so fragile, and they really aren't, you know.
But we got one more picture.
Let's go back to, we've got a couple more, I think, here, don't we? Yes. Let's go back to another. I enjoy planting the base of these spikes. And while that burgundy spike is actually a wonderful plant called Phormium, we have a tendency to refer to it as a spike, okay? At the base of that is oxalis, which is the dark leaf that picks up the color that's in that spike. There is some blue scaevola, and there is bonfire begonia. Now, if we come back to the desk, I would like to show you that bonfire begonia is incredibly similar to this, but there are 2 new kids on the block with this. This particular one is waterfalls. They all are very similar. If you didn't have them lined up together, you might not know which was which, you know. I think waterfalls is just a little bit bigger flower. But you can see the growth habit of this. It has a tendency to arch over. This is why it's so complementary growing at the edges of that beautiful spike.
Right.
Or of an ornamental grass. I love the Penicetum rubrum with this. Or if it's in sunshine, something like one of the salvias. Something that's more upright and then this grows among it. This is a spectacular plant. I think it also comes in white. I'm kind of into this orangey, purpley thing, you know, right now.
That.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that. But other begonias too. This is another lovely. And pick up those, Debbie, and let's show them.
I mean, as I was saying, the looks are so different, which is really neat.
This is a very different one also. And look at the delicate colors that are in some of these. And the leaves are beautiful. The one in your hand over here.
Isn't that spectacular?
And they make great house plants. While they're annuals, you can bring them in the winter time and enjoy them inside.
I don't have enough hands here.
If you've got another hand available, bring that one.
Look at that.
Look at that.
Wow.
But you could put all of these in one container and have a begonia container, and there's interest from the color that's in the leaves. I tell you, these begonias are just incredible. Now, I think we've got just
two more pictures?
time to tell you also, while there were perennial salvia, there's also perennial begonia, and you'll find these in the perennial section. And this is a good time of year to get these plants in. This is Begonia grandis, and it stands, depending upon how rich the soil is, it can stand 2.5 feet tall. Makes a wonderful ground cover. In shade, doesn't like full sun in the afternoon. It'll love full morning sun. But that is the back of the leaf that you're looking at, and it's just gorgeous. And when it comes into bloom, it's that typical begonia flower, and it's just lovely. Slowly reproduces itself so that it's not obnoxious. And in the next picture is a much underused plant, and I have used it as a ground cover around some boxwood, and it's just beautiful. Most people refer to this as a strawberry begonia because it reproduces somewhat like a strawberry does, but it is not a begonia at all. It is a saxifraga, and I've had it for years. It's absolutely wonderful. It's great in the shade. Doesn't like hot afternoon sun. Plants that like the shade want some reprieve from the hottest afternoon sun. But when you come up to a plant and it says full sun, yes, it'll grow in absolute full sun, but it'll also prosper with 5 to 6 hours of absolute full sun.
Right.
But when you go to a shade plant that wants some shade, and some of these begonias do, then give them a little protection in the afternoon, okay? But remember that Salonia begonia will take full sun.
So there's something for every part of your garden.
Absolutely.
There's a begonia for every part of your garden.
There is.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
Welcome back to Merrifield's Gardening Advisor. And as we came in, you saw the beautiful blossoms of the New Guinea impatiens. They are certainly a very valuable plant. As I said, now there are those that will grow in full sun or in part shade. I want to talk a little bit about another wonderful grouping of plants, and that is fern. Fern is the friend of the shade garden, particularly. They love the shade. A lot of them will do well in sun if the ground is moist, okay? And talking about moist ground, I'm convinced that I've got a little spring down under a section going down through my garden because I lost everything that didn't like moist soil. And then I got some surprises. Native ostrich fern came into one area, and I decided, okay, you're happy, just take off, and it did. But I've got this wonderful large area of predominantly ostrich fern, which stands at least 3 feet tall. Interspersed with that are a lot of hosta. There's a little bit of liriope down here, and there's camellias growing in some of this. There's a little bit of azalea. There's a mixture of a lot of plants, and a large Burford holly within that area too, that I've really limbed up these things, and it's all very happy. So ferns are a good thing. And guess what? So far, the deer don't eat fern. That's a good thing. In the next picture, I have a different kind of fern. This fern is, let's call it tropical because it won't live over winter here. It's called Kimberly Queen. It will grow in sun or shade, which is unusual for a fern. It makes a great container plant and is wonderful and complements a lot of other plants. Now, grown with this is, in my opinion, one of the best hummingbird plants that you could ever plant. And that is the Gartenmeister fuchsia. It too stands about 2.5 feet tall, blends beautifully with that fern, or is wonderful in the ground. This is a great in the ground thing. And if you want hummingbirds, plant it and they will come. The next one, please. Here again, different varieties of ferns in this bed at my home. A lovely statue. I do enjoy the accents within the garden. I don't want to see them all at once, but you don't. You see them as you walk through the garden. And so I have a lovely statue here on a pedestal. Behind it, and actually at the edges of a holly tree, gives me a lot of color in the shade, is caladiums. And now you can put caladiums into the ground because the ground's warm enough. Caladiums, basil, don't like cold soil. What else is combined with these things? Hacanacloa. Hacanacloa is a low-growing grass that comes in tones of variegation and comes in a bright golden color. But this is a very pleasing area within the garden, and it doesn't have a lot of flowers. Now, this was taken when I had white impatiens in it, but you can also plant begonias there or New Guinea impatiens there, and to give that spot of color. The next one, please. We'll continue to talk about fern and what goes well with it. This is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful fern. And it is rising up out of a plant that's called Brunera. It is our perennial forget-me-not and comes green leaves and a variegated leaf. But look how that complements the upright fern there. The next one, please. Phlox stolonifera. It's a native phlox. Grows beautifully in the shade, and in the background are fern and hosta, and this expanse of Phlox stolonifera with small bulbs blooming out of it. And of course it's complemented by the beautiful dogwood. You can get a lot from dogwood in your garden with color too. And let's row, I think there's some more phlox. This again is in that same area. It's just so beautiful when it comes into bloom. And look how beautiful it is with the Japanese maple. This is growing beneath the dogwood and the Japanese maple. And in the next one, here is a different section of the garden. This is a large area beneath oak trees, and I have perennial geranium blooming here. And the deer don't eat this one because it's very fragrant, and deer don't like things that are very fragrant. The leaves, if you pick it, it smells so good. It's just lovely. So I've got the Phlox stolonifera growing here, Phlox divaricata growing here. These are woodland phlox. They are native phlox. And guess what? There are fern. A very enjoyable part of the garden. And there's another one. Pulmonaria. This is another beautiful plant that mixes so well with the fern and the phlox and the geranium. Comes in different colors. Beautiful patterns on the leaves. It's about a foot, foot and a half tall. Just lovely. And another one. Here is a close-up of the Phlox divaricata. This is a ground cover plant. And when it blooms, it sends those blooms up. They're about a foot tall. And look how beautifully it blends with the golden color of that hosta. Very, very attractive. Now's the time to get these Phlox divaricata, Phlox stolonifera, all of these ground cover plants in. And guess what? When you do that in a shade garden, there's very little weeding that you have to do. I believe we have one more. Add to that mix, you can see there's fern down here. Add to that mix Polygonatum. There's several different varieties of this. This is the variegated one. Arches over all in the same direction. Can be as much as 3 feet tall. And when it goes down in the autumn, it is a spectacular orange. So it plays a major role in the garden. These are just a few of the things that go so well with the fern, but we're going to keep talking about beautiful plants, and we'll be back in a moment.
Well, our hour flies by, so before we get to this next group of plants, I want to show you close-up of a couple things that you mentioned before.
Yes, I did, because they're so spectacular. The first one is the one I call the strawberry begonia. And the reason I think that it's called that is all these little runners will run off and put up baby plants. There's you probably can't see it, but there's little baby plants all along this.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is not an obnoxious ground cover. It is gorgeous. And I think this one has been on some steroids.
Yeah, it's huge.
Mine is not this big, okay? Maybe I need to go home and feed
there
it.
You go.
Know? But another one Debbie has, and if you hold them together, look how pretty they are. Now imagine that there's a fern in the midst of that.
Probably,
so
yes.
This is the Pulmonaria, but it has that gorgeous leaf. It's just so pretty.
Yeah.
I love them together, so I just really had to show you how spectacular they really are.
And I wanted to mention before we show these other plants that we talk about a lot of plants, and some of the pictures we're able to put, actual names on, but it's just difficult. So if you go to our website, merrifieldgardencenter.com, you can go to the TV show section, and it will. We have the video of the copy of the show, and we have listed the outline that we use. And now, of course, don't hold us to that, because we just use that as a base, but it usually has all the plants listed in there for the most part. So you can click on those, and they're usually up by the later in the afternoon type of thing on Saturdays.
Works on that as long as that computer's up.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
We had a little computer issues this week, so
really makes it difficult. I do quickly want to share some other very special plants. Let's bring up the first picture, because it's a picture of Amsonia hubrecti. This is what it looks like at this time of the year. It's a lovely green plant, perennial, and these are the blossoms. It will, after the blossoms, be a beautiful green in the garden, and in the next picture you can see in the fall what happens with this plant. This is why it is so valuable. So when we run through the next two pictures, you will see this in autumn. The golden color that you see in the background is that same Amsonia hubrecti with the fall color. And that is a fall picture. The dahlias are still in bloom, and we have some magnificent dahlias. Time to get those in the ground too. Now, here is another picture, and it's shown with lantana. That's an annual that's available right now, and it just blooms and blooms and blooms. With Verbena bonariensis is the purple that you see in the background. So
would that be the Verbena on a stick?
Oh, it's a Verbena. That's a Verbena on a stick. Yes, in the perennial section. Now I can't leave the program today without quickly showing you the advantages of some trees. Right now in my garden, the fringe tree is in bloom.
Oh, yes.
And this is native to my garden. It's all up and down the stream bank. And I took the next picture last week, but it's not clear, I realize. That is the fringe tree in bloom, and next to it is the variegated redbud. I love redbud. And flowing out into that is a hybrid dogwood and a Japanese maple. This is a canopy that you walk beneath, and it is
wonderful.
Glorious. You know, I have a sitting area there. And in the following picture are viburnum, a very valuable plant. And we'll finish up with the beauty of the elderberry. You just got to have a little bit of all of it.
That's right.
It makes it
elderberry
work.
wine.
and in front of that elderberry was the Amsonia in full bloom.
Right.
So these are great understory trees, or they're great small trees for a small garden.
Right.
And I just don't want to be without them.
And next week we're going to continue this theme.
Yes, we will, to introduce you perhaps to some new things and talk about how you can use the old things.
That's right.
Old, not.
No. New. Wonderful. Beautiful.
Yes.
Now, are you heading over to the garden center?
I'm going to the garden center, so I'll meet you there.
Okay, so come on by. Peggy will be out in the annual section ready to give you some great ideas. So we hope you'll stop by and look through the gorgeous plants. It's just,
they are beautiful.
Love this time of year.
Love
this
them.
time of year. So we will see you next week. Hope you have a wonderful week, and stop by Merrifield Garden Center this week. Take care.